Ooh. 2 top 10 countdowns in one day? Now that is pretty pog, not gonna lie. And in this one, the gist will be covering the 10 best mid laners of the incoming 11.21 patch. So if you want to know who the top mid lane champions are going to be in a week's time, make sure you stick around. Now just like our top lane countdown, these 10 champions are in no particular order. So it's up to you guys to decide who the #1 most broken champion is going to be. So make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and let's get into it. So the first champion we have to consider for being the most broken next patch is of course Katarina. And there are no direct nerfs to Katarina, but there are a couple to her runes. So Conqueror is getting nerfed, so the actual damage you're getting per stack, this is down. And the actual stack itself is also lasting only 4 seconds, which is 2 seconds shorter. This for sure means something, as does the Ravenous Hunter nerf, where you're getting 0.3% less Omnivamp. But here's the thing guys, Katarina is at such an advantage because you can actually dodge these nerfs by going a certain rune page, which you can see on your screen now. So by going Electric, you have a much stronger laning phase and actual trading potential in that laning phase. And instead of going Ravenous Hunter at the bottom of your domination tree, take Relentless Hunter instead. This is going to help your movement around the map, and as such, you're just going to get more kills. And funnily enough, this setup right now in higher elo actually has a much higher win rate than the Conqueror's setup. Now, as for your items, you can of course rush Nash's Tooth and then build Rocket Belt, but I want you, with this Electrocute rune page, to rush Rocket Belt and then build Nash's, or even Zhonya's Hourglass, depending on the game you're in and if you actually need it. And the reason for rushing Rocket Belt is just because it's going to capitalize on the burst you have from this Electrocute page. Now for your boots, of course, Sorcerer's Shoes, these are the way to go. And for another patch, guys, Katarina is going to be right at the top. Now another champion who is going to be right at the top in the mid lane for 11.21, this is Leblanc. And for Leblanc next patch, the Ravenous Hunter nerf, just like Katarina, this is going to mean something, but for Leblanc, all of your major strengths are still there. The burst damage, the setup, the assassination potential in the mid to late game. And one of the reasons you have that assassination potential is because you're Mythic, Luden's Tempest, and the synergy this has with Sorcerer's Shoes and then Cosmic Drive. Remember, after your 2 major items, you will be accessing Cosmic Drive's passive, and the movement speed and the extra haste means that you can get around the map unlike any other champion in the game and completely dominate. And there is a reason why Leblanc is banned in 25% of games in high elo, and it's because she's broken. But for your secondary tree guys in your rune page, please make sure to take Biscuit Delivery and then Time Ward Tonic, and make sure with this setup you are going to start with Corrupting Potion as your starting item. So LeBlanc, another one to consider for the best mid laner, as is this next champion, and this is Lux, who I'm super excited about because she is getting 4 buffs for 11.21, or because she has a new skin coming out. But seriously, that is why she got buffed. And the buffs are as follows. So your attack speed, you're getting more per level, and it might seem like an unimportant buff, but for a ranged mid laner, lots of your damage is actually going to come from your auto attacks, and this also helps with proccing your passive. Now speaking of your passive, the mark duration is going to last a little longer if you are basic attacking that target, or if your ultimate is actually being cast. So more passive procs, nice. And then one of the most controversial buffs of all time, your ease damage, the base damage is up, as is its AP scaling. And because this is the ability you max first, this is seriously big. And for an ability which is pretty much impossible to miss, lots of people I'm sure are going to be mad about this. And to be honest, that anger is probably going to continue because your ultimate's cooldown at rank 1, so at level 6, it's down 20 seconds. That's right, it's only 1 minute at level 6. This is absurd, so whether you want to shove waves, damage the enemy champions, steal objectives, like 20 seconds, it's 25%. And these changes definitely mean for Lux she is going to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest. Now in terms of your items, just like LeBlanc, you want Sorcerer's Shoes, you want Luden's Tempest. But then this is where it changes. Horizon Focus is by far the second best major item, simply because you can proc its passive with your Q and your range, and then after that it really depends. Void Staff, Rabnon's Death Cap, Sonya's Hourglass if they have some sort of AD assassin. Just make sure to build the item you need for that occasion. But in 11.21 guys, you really cannot go wrong by picking Lux. Now another mid laner who got buffed recently, this is Fizz, and Fizz's win rate had skyrocketed, all because of that ridiculous E buffer I gave you, so it's 2 seconds lower at rank 5, and seeing as this is the ability you max first, you can make use of this so quickly in a game. But the Ravenous Hunter nerf is going to hurt Fizz, of course, because of the sustain, so I'm going to give you a secondary page here, as you can see, which is going to help that. With Biscuit Delivery and Time War Tonic, just like LeBlanc, you are going to have the laning phase sustain you need. Otherwise, you are going to get bullied out of it, and also make sure to take 2 Adaptive Force, no attack speed in your minor runes. And as for your items, one of the most popular pages built by Korean Fizz players is going Luden's Tempest and then Cosmic Drive, just like LeBlanc. And the reason for this is because you are an AP assassin with Cosmic Drive's passive, you get more movement speed and more ability haste. phase. So imagine this with your E and your roaming potential, it's all too much to deal with. Just make sure to max your W second, and the slippery little fish has to be in consideration again for 1121. Now another super strong mid laner who is kind of underrated, especially in lower elos, this is Rumble. And thanks to the change a few patches ago which saw your shield go down in cooldown, this has seen Rumble in the mid lane, his win rate is actually one of the highest across the board. Pushing power, the roaming potential, the early to mid game prowess, it's actually very hard if not impossible to stop you from doing what you want to do. So if you want to play an early game dominant mid laner guys Rumble, you can't really beat him. But please be aware that your level 1 against ranged champions isn't the best, so into these matchups you want to be taking your harpoon first, but in any game you are still maxing your Q first. Now in terms of your items, Hextech Rockabouts should always be your first item with Sorcerer Shoes, and then building Zhonya's Hourglass, and then Void Staff, Death Cap, Morello's, whatever it is you need to beat the enemy team. Just remember to put your ultimate on normal cast and you are good to go. Now one of the most consistent mid laners guys is coming in next, and this is Ahri, who still has one of the best win rates in every single elo in every single region, and the reason is because she's so reliable, and with this new Everfrost setup you play more like a utility mage, and this just enables your teammates to go absolutely crazy, which is one of the big positives of Ahri. On these other champions it's all about you and how you play, but on Ahri it's so easy to set up kills for your team while still being really fed yourself. So in terms of your items, yes, Everfrost and then Cosmic Drive you can go, or Zhonya's Hourglass, one of these, and when you pair these few items with cooldown boots, it gives you so much ability haste and control in team fights because of your multiple charms, and when you pair this with your runes and taking Transcendent, which is giving you even more ability haste, it makes it extremely hard to actually dive onto your backline just because you are sitting there ready. But it is very important to understand guys that this playstyle is not based on assassinating enemy champions. It's not Deathfire Grasp Ahri from season 3, this is Everfrost Control Mage Ahri. So be very aware of that, but regardless, just picking Ahri you are going to have success because she is so consistent and reliable and easy to do well on. So she is another mid laner we have to think about. Now one mid laner who is copping a bunch of nerfs this patch, kind of indirect nerfs, this is Talon. But for 1121 guys, I still think he is going to be the best AD mid lane assassin simply because these nerfs are not big enough to bring him down from his pedestal. Now the Conqueror nerf, the buff duration being 2 seconds shorter, is actually meaningful because for Talon you don't stack your Conqueror instantly. So in some situations you're not actually going to stack it to 12 in those fights, and this is certainly going to impact your damage output. And Gore Drinker is also getting nerfed, so the active's damage is scaling off your base AD, and instead of getting base health regen you're now getting Omnivamp, which is good for the late game, don't get me wrong, but the active will do less damage later in a game. So overall these are certainly nerfs for Talon, but he's still too good. These nerfs will not be enough to bring him into line. And one interesting thing about your items, you can still go either Spike Whip, and instead of going Gore Drinker, the nerf version, you might actually consider rushing Youmuu's Ghostblade instead. Then you could build Gore Drinker afterwards and then Black Cleaver, and you are good to go. So there are ways of actually getting around these nerfs, and next patch Talon will still be one of the best mid lane assassins and mid laners generally. Now one of the newest champions on the Rift guys is coming in next, and this is Vex. It's a very solid win rate across the board, ranging from around 51% to 53% in higher elos, and the reason is because she's very easy to play, and her abilities and what she brings to the table, these are always going to be useful and reliable. Your fear, your setup, your wave clear, your one-shot potential, your damage, she has very few weak points. I mean, she is kind of immobile, so do be careful of getting ganked, but a bit like Lux, with Sorcerer Shoes and Luna's Tempers, and then Horizon Focus and Zhonya's Hourglass, this is really all you need to pop off. The scaling magic penetration, it just turns you into a mid-late game beast, and in terms of your rune page, make sure you go the one on screen guys with Ultimate Hunter, because Ravenous Hunter is nerfed, it makes it less worth to actually go, and just like Leblanc and Fizz, taking Biscuit Delivery and then Time Warp Tonic, it's just going to give you more sustain in the laning phase, and with this setup of course go Corrupting Potion as your starting item. And Vex, kind of surprisingly, is still being banned in almost 40% of high elo games guys because she is so broken, so if you can get your hands on her, definitely play Vex next patch. Now this next champion guys is the final AD mid laner we have to think about for being the best in 1121, and this is Zed. And for Zed, it's going to be a very nice patch. With the Ravenous Hunter nerf, the Conqueror nerf, the Gore Drinker nerf, a lot of your counterparts who are contesting you for the best mid laner are going to be negatively affected by this, but for Zed, you really aren't. As you can see on your screen now, this Electrocute page doesn't have Ravenous Hunter, and obviously you're not running Conqueror as your keystone, and in the secondary tree with Transcendence and Scorch, your kill potential, your kill threat is still going to be at an all-time high. Now in terms of your items, we're still rushing Serrated Dirk and then into Ghostblade because of the flat ability haste it's now giving you, and when you pair this with Lucidity Boots, Dustblade, and then Cerulda's Grudge, it is lights out for the enemy team. And Zed is another one of those champions who's banned an awful lot. In fact, he's banned 40 to 50% of the time in lower elos, which is kinda nuts, which just shows you that lots of people still think Zed is OP. So a bit like Vex, if you can get your hands on Zed guys next patch, and your team needs a bit of AD, certainly pick him in the mid lane. Now the final champion we have to think about guys for 1121 is not banned nearly as much as these other champions, so for sure, maining Annie is a very wise idea. And despite the 1150 15 nerf that nerfed your AP ratio and your Q, and he is still proven to be one of the strongest mid laners we have. And of course, once you get your Luden's Tempest and your Sorceress shoes, like she's too OP for what she actually gives you for how easy she is to play. Just look at Tyler 1 for example. He got Master instantly. Now turn to your runes, copy the page you see on screen now, and make sure that after you get your Luden's Tempest, Zonia's Hourglass, and then into Morellonomicon, Void Staff, Death Cap, again like lots of these other picks, make sure to build the item you need to beat the enemy team and to actually cut their major sources of damage. And there we have it guys, the top 10 mid laners for patch 11.21. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to be the most broken, and also let me know if you think there's a champion we should have mentioned. As always, make sure to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and also make sure to check out the GameLeap website on your way out for all the learning resources you need to climb before season ends, which is coming by the way, it's like a month away. So to reach that rank you've always wanted, sign up to the website linked in the description and comment section, and until tomorrow's upload, this has been the Jizz.